All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to AJC and the Web Devs. We got Monarch. I have my
Yeah.
Twitch open in the other window. Oh, no. I was hearing myself immediately. I was like, ah.
Oh no.
What's up? Introduce yourself, Monarch.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Anthony. It's been a while since I streamed, and really glad that I'm doing it for the first time in a long time with you. Uh, Guess an intro about me. I'm a developer. I program and I build stuff. I've been a full stack developer for a while now, and I've mostly worked in front end stuff, React, SvelteKit. I've done my fair share of Angular 1. I've done Vue. Um, and I've also done like a bunch of backend stuff like Node and Java and Rails. So I think just dropping those technologies probably dates me a little. So that's sort of my background. And I have been working on large language models as a full stack developer. I'm not a data scientist or anything like that. So working with large language models on the prompting side and the tool use side has sort of taken up a lot of my AI learning time for the last couple of years. And I'm building this thing called Ragged, and Ragged is it's this TypeScript library that simplifies and streamlines all of the LLM stuff that I've been doing on a day-to-day basis. So I've built and rebuilt chatbots. I've built and rebuilt the text streaming feature over and over and over again for different applications. And I sort of got tired of just reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. And
The best reason to build an open source library. Once you've done things a million times, you build a way to do it faster.
Exactly. And I really love LangChain. LangChain is awesome. There's also Haystack, and there are all these awesome frameworks. I found them a little too heavy for my personal tastes, and I just wanted something a little bit more lightweight that had a more fluent API, or at least one that was more pleasing for me personally. And what came out of all of those drives and impulses and needs, what came out was this project that I started about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's super early on, but it's growing really fast. We already have our first 3 contributors other than me. And like it's starting to really take on a life of its own very slowly. What's come out of it is this TypeScript library that I'm going to demo today that is first focused not on the data scientist, not on the backend developer, but it's really focused on the front end or full stack Node developer. And it's built for the full stack Node developers' needs rather than most LLM libraries are built for Python devs or they're built for backend devs because retrieval augmented generation has taken over the world recently. So there's a lot of backend focus on AI and large language models. I always found that I was more interested in using AI and large language models in empowering the user to give the user more power over their user interface. And in that sense, really empower the user in their daily life. Because what I've always found is the more power you give to the user in the user interface, the better their life becomes. That's sort of the goal of the user interface, is to make users' lives easier. And I see a lot of potential in large language models to do that.
Yeah, that's
That's sort
great.
of an introduction.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you use a lot of terms there like LangChain and RAG and stuff like that for people who are already like me, very, very deep into this whole LLM world. I'm like, yeah, like I totally got what you're building like immediately. And that's one of the reasons I kind of like jumped on it and wanted to check it out. But I want to take a step back and for people who haven't gone down this route yet, because I've seen and I'm sure you've seen this as well. There's a spectrum for web developers in terms of like how into LLMs and AI in general they are, whether they're like really skeptical of it and kind of hesitant to try it, or if they're like all in. And I think you and I are very far to the spectrum of like we went all in and we like really saw the potential of this technology. And I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about this. And so I'm excited that you're as excited about this stuff as me because like I'm just like really think it's transformational technology in a lot of ways. And I can actually say that I was kind of ahead of the curve in terms of I remember when GPT-4 came out in 2019 and I first saw an LLM write poetry. And to me, I was just like, it wasn't even good poetry, but the fact that it could write poetry at all, I was like, this is cool. Like, this is something qualitatively different from what I have seen computers do in the past. And then most people had that moment when they tried ChatGPT. They had a conversation with ChatGPT, and that's what, having a conversation is what I say, not like search for information. Like, it's good at that too. It's good at lots of things. But to me, I would sit down and I would have these long discursive conversations about like the JFK assassination. And it would try and convince me that Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK. And I was like, no, he really didn't though. And then we'd have this like huge argument about it. And so what do you use LLMs for in your daily life?
Everything. Like it's sort of like a second brain at this point for me, and it really lets me tap into the collective consciousness of humanity. I mean, it's the internet started as a promise. It was the promise of the internet was the information superhighway. That was the big buzzword back then.
I was a kid, but I remember.
Yep. The sum total of human knowledge at your fingertips, and the internet kind of provided that. Like Yahoo back in the day was interesting because you could, Alta Vista was another one. You could go and look up all these lists and find things. Web rings were a thing. It was sort of janky, and then Google comes along, and Google becomes this amazing way to access everything just through search. And then Google sort of starts slowing down because it needs to make money. They start pushing ads, and the user experience of Google has been not that great for the last.
And people learn that Google is where people go, so then they start hacking it to get the results at the top, whether they're actually the results you want or not. That could be like, products, news agencies, everything, started being hacked.
Exactly. And that was already painful, and I was already kind of itching for an alternative to Google. And then I didn't actually start my AI journey with ChatGPT. I started it with DALL-E 2. So I remember a friend of mine, he sent me this little AI generated picture of a dinosaur. And I was like, what is this? And he said, I prompted DALL-E 2 and it created this image. And I said, what? So I started prompting DALL-E 2. I signed up for an account. I started prompting DALL-E 2 with dinosaur images and a dinosaur eating the CN Tower in Toronto. And I just started making all these.
Real quick, I want to share this because the first time I used DALL-E 2, maybe this was DALL-E 3, I'm not sure, but I basically asked it create an image of cats wearing berets in the style of Henri Matisse.
Nice. Those are really good.
Yeah, I have this is DALL-E 3 because I redid this. I originally did this with DALL-E 2. I'm not sure where that screenshot is, but that's basically the idea.
Yeah. It was a mind-blowing moment for me because last time I saw AI generate art was 10 years ago with Deep Mind. I can't remember the
Deep Dream.
Deep Dream, yeah.
Deep Dream is the thing that it looked like you gave a computer acid. It was like this weird psychedelic kind of like rainbow transformations, and you look at the sky and they're like animals' faces would be kind of like in it.
Dogs everywhere.
I remember when that came out, and I remember looking at that and I'm like, this is like watching the AI super brain like come into form like in real time. It was so fascinating to me. This is before I even knew how to code, and all this AI stuff like AlphaGo and things like that. That is what actually made me want to learn to code in the first place. And I tried to learn Python. I tried to learn NumPy and Pandas, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. It was like I spent years trying to do that. And then eventually it was like, this isn't working. And I went to a boot camp and learned web dev instead. And then I spent years as a web developer. And then now ChatGPT blows up. So like I have such a long history with all this AI stuff. And that's also why it's kind of frustrating to me for people who think that they're like, okay, people have been talking about AI forever. There's always been AI hype. This is not different from the other times. This is just the thing that's going to fizzle out. And I'm like, no, like, trust me, this is different this time. Like it really is different. And this is the time to get in, because I've been into AI for 10 years, but it's only been in the last year and a half where I've actually used AI. Like you say, you use it for everything now.
Yes. Yeah. I'll do.
It'd be so cool if computers could smoke weed and produce computer stars. That's a hilarious
That's
comment.
awesome.
That is hilarious.
It's it's basically what computers are doing now. Like it's they're creative, they're brainstormy, they can come up with all sorts of weird concepts. And honestly, some of these things are smarter than me. I should probably divert the conversation to Ragged, because the thing that I think everybody kind of knows what ChatGPT is now. Everybody sort of knows that now there's AI that you can talk to, or at least in our circles, at least the people watching this will know what ChatGPT and GPT-4 are, more or less.
Yeah.
So one thing that a lot of developers are scared of is, and it's a valid concern, is, well, is this stuff going to steal our jobs? Like, is
Yeah.
AI going to steal our jobs? And um, in the last 10 years, or well, more than 10 years now that I've been a developer, I've seen that developers are always programming themselves out of a job. And that's not a thought that I came up with. That's something that developers before me came up with. Like, this has been a common thought since probably the 70s or 80s.
Well, there's also
That,
been that joke where someone has like 3 jobs that they just show up to 2 hours a week because they wrote a bunch of scripts to do what they're supposed to.
that's basically what developers keep doing, right? Like they keep
Yeah.
building abstractions and automation.
Mhm.
And so we're constantly at the leading edge of just programming ourselves out of a job. We've always been doing that.
Yeah.
And people say, like you just said, well, this is different. There's this thing called Devin. I saw a video for something called Devin, and Devin is like
Which
an
people are now saying is
automated.
a fraud.
I
People
heard
say that
that.
all the and this is something you gotta be wary of, is that you can watch a demo of one of these tools and get an idea of what it could do, but those demos are highly curated to make it look as impressive as possible. You
Yeah.
really have to get your hands on these tools to get a sense of what they can and can't do. And this is what made ChatGPT such a revolution. Is it was just a text interface on the internet anyone could go use. And so
Yeah.
people were able to see themselves what it could do and what it can't do. And that's why when ChatGPT first came out, there was a lot of pushback saying, hey, look at all these things it sucks at. And it's gotten progressively better and better and better at a lot of those things. Like you can do math now. If you give it math equations, it will actually write code to do the math. It used to just take in numbers and spit numbers back out and have no concept of whether they actually made sense or not. But that's what I like about talking to you about this, is that you actually use this stuff day to day, and that's the only way you can really get a sense of its capabilities and its limitations.
You know what? That's a great segue to hop into the code, and I
Yeah,
can start
let's
showing what
we
the
show
stuff can do.
the GitHub or the npm package actually, so people can check this out themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah, great idea. So let's see. So if you go to npm and you go to Ragged, super simple name.
It was ragged play on rag.
It kind of is. I like the name, but the funny thing is, it has nothing to do with retrieval augmented generation right now,
That's kind of what I was
except for the
thinking.
generation part.
You'll build that in later, and the story will be different in the future.
Exactly. We'll see where this goes. Maybe people will forget about Rag altogether, and Ragged will just stand on its own. So super quick, I have 14 versions of this thing out. So I've been actively developing on it, and now we have contributors. So this is
You should
a
also
very,
share your YouTube. Actually, I'll share that in the chat. You have a YouTube video you just put out.
I do. So if you want to share that, that'd be amazing. This is, as you can see, by sidebar position 1, which is an artifact of Markdown front matter. As you can see, this is very raw. It's version 0.1.3. But what I'm excited about is this is an opportunity for me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity on your platform. For me to get other people excited about this project and join us in the community to start working on this. So what I'm doing is I have this old Discord with about 10,000 people on it called Mintbean, and I'm just co-opting the Mintbean Discord, and I'm going to be using the Mintbean Discord as a seed to grow the community. So I'm hoping that it's been sleeping for a while. I'm really hoping that the Mintbean Discord can be used to get a lot of attention on Ragged as it grows. But right now, there's only 4 people in the community, really, and I'm counting you and me, Anthony. So there's Abhimanyu too, who's here, and there's one more person who's 1 or 2 more people who are actively involved now. But this is a great opportunity for anybody who's a web developer who doesn't know machine learning, or maybe knows a little bit of machine learning or in data science, but they want to get into large language models and AI. Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say real quick. When I was first getting before I had a job, I was doing a lot of my first meetup talks, and Mintbean was where I did many of those. So you gave me a platform originally when I was trying to get into coding. So this feels like a full circle moment where I can bring you on my platform. So yeah, and you were the second guest on FS Jam as well.
Oh yeah.
So you were there. You started from the bottom. Now you're here with me. Very, very happy to continue doing this kind of stuff with you.
I get by with a little help from my friends, man. So friendships are amazing. So if anybody wants to get into AI, as I was saying, but they don't have AI skills in a traditional data science way, I'm hoping that Ragged becomes a platform for developers who want to get into AI to get there without knowing all the hardcore stuff. I don't know the hardcore stuff either. But
yeah, I want to touch on the thing you said earlier about this being for JavaScript developers and not Python developers, because that's the similar thing I noticed getting into a lot of these libraries like LangChain especially and Llama Index. Those are kind of the two like really, really big open source libraries that aim to do similar stuff to what you're doing. And there's some differences, but with both of those, they were Python libraries that they then kind of ported to JavaScript. And it's like they would have this huge docs with like all these examples in Python, and then there'd be like, here's 2 JavaScript examples. Now I should be like, okay, I want to do all this other stuff that is in Python, but you only give me these 2 examples in JavaScript. So then you're like kind of trying to port stuff over, and it ends up being very, very challenging. So having something that is like from the start, JavaScript, TypeScript, Node, native, that is one thing that is really, really exciting to me about this project.
It's definitely, I had to pick up so much Python because I wanted to get into large language models. And then after picking up Python, I realized that I don't really need the hardcore stuff. I'm more interested in the integration into a full stack architecture. And I'm a full stack dev who wants to take advantage of AI, and I don't really need Python. Everything is happening over APIs anyway. So let's build something that's for full stack web devs.
Yeah.
So Ragged works on both the front end and the back end. And the examples that I'm going to go through today, they're going to be front-end examples. I'm going to go through like a little intro in the backend just to show that it works in Node.
You should bump up just one font would help.
Oh yeah, totally. Maybe a couple. There you go.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to go through a couple of examples. We'll just walk through the very basic first API call example. And once that's done, I'll go into like a simple example that's also on here for streaming API too. But the really exciting stuff is the tool integration. And what tool integration is it lets the LLM call your code in a structured way. So it outputs structured data that you can then feed into your architecture and emit as an event, essentially.
You also have this homepage as well that people can check out.
Yes, that's the quick start. We need people to write documentation. I've tried to write documentation. It's not my forte. I've tried to build examples. They're not my forte.
That was the first thing I did when you sent me this. I created a little quick start and shot it over to you.
Yeah. If anybody wants to join and just build examples, that'd be awesome. And thank you for building that. You were actually the first person to join the.
I was the first contributor.
You were the first contributor.
I like being in the ground floor of this kind of stuff. It's fun, and I really learn a lot just by building stuff like this with people.
You did it with a few different projects now, like 0 to 1, baby. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, the other one that I was at the ground floor of, when I remember, like, this is the second time where it's like, I remember when they're publishing the NPM package itself, because there's Slinkity. I don't know if you know Ben Holmes, but he is talking about this project Slinkity, which is basically like, how do you combine 11D with like React components and Vite and stuff? And he was talking about it, and I was really excited about it. And I literally went to my computer and did npm I Slinkity, and I'm like, Ben, this thing doesn't exist yet. He's like, yeah, I haven't published it yet. And I'm like, you're hyping it up though. Like, where is it?
Oh, really? So he hyped it up before he even published it.
Yeah.
Wow. Remember, I think you tried to install it, and then you came back and you were like, "This thing is broken." And I was like, "Ah, crap."
It
Remember
was,
that?
yeah. Uh-huh.
I fixed that up, but it's all working now. And the really exciting thing is the tool integration example. You know what? Let's work in reverse. Let me actually show you what this thing is capable of, and let's get people excited. And once people are excited, let's go back and do the demos or do the tutorial. So
Mhm.
just to get people excited, here's a little example that I built. Um, this is Smart Reader, and this is committed to the Ragged GitHub repo, and it's available for anybody who wants to check out the code. So if you go to the Ragged GitHub and you go into the examples, you'll see this. So Smart Reader is it's a command and control user interface that you talk to the AI and the AI does things for you. The AI right now can do two things. It can search Wikipedia and display results, and it can analyze those results. So there's two
Mhm.
things it can do. So the interesting thing about this is that even with those two things, you get a lot of really interesting immersion properties that you can then build on top of. So I'll just do a quick example. So search for aliens. Let's just do aliens. So
And can you actually explain what are tools? Because this is a specific term that's being used in a specific way. I'm not sure who first started using this terminology, but like there's tools is a not it's a specific term.
it is. The first time I came across tools as a term was in a research paper where somebody had taken large language models and they had gotten the large language models to use like a bash terminal, like a Linux terminal. And they were using the Linux terminal and checking out whether this LLM out of the box without any special training could actually use tools. And they found that they could. And the way that they use tools is they give you the command and you run the command on their behalf. So you could execute it in a terminal. You could just pipe it to the terminal and execute it, or you could put it in eval in JavaScript. Sort of dangerous, but people figured out that these LLMs, because they've been trained on GitHub and Stack Overflow and the rest of the internet, they know how to code.
Hmm.
And because they know how to code, they know how to output data in JSON. And now that you have output data in JSON, you can build an API on top of that and sell that to your customers. And that's what OpenAI and Claude and Cohere, all of these large language models, they're coming out with what they call function calling or tool use.
Hmm.
And what tool use is you tell the LLM, here are all the tools I have. This is your, you can imagine it like an RPG, like you have a backpack full of tools or
Hmm.
weapons. So you fill the metaphorical backpack full of your
Uh-huh.
tools and you tell it this is how you use them. It's like a little JSON blob, maybe 200 characters or 300 or 500 characters long, and you send that to the LLM, and then you can do stuff like search for aliens. And what it'll do is it'll trigger the tool. In this case, it's a Wikipedia search, and it'll come back with the results.
Yeah, and this is
And
actually when I was first using ChatGPT, this is a huge sticking point for me is that it couldn't use the internet. So it was like it was trained up to I think September. I think I remember this very well. September 2021. It would always
yeah,
say my knowledge only goes up to September 2021. It would say this over and over and over and over again. And I was like, man, it'd be really nice if you could just search the internet and get in new data. And so
100%.
web browser is one of the tools now on ChatGPT.
You got it. Yeah. And they also do Python execution now. They can do like, you can generate images, have it output it into ChatGPT. Like it's crazy what you can do with it now. But yeah, that's a great point. All of that stuff is enabled by this feature, which is tool use. And uh, you can see that it's output all of this stuff. These are all Wikipedia articles, and these are just simple extracts of the first however many characters from the article.
And you can
So
tell it's like Wikipedia because it's coming up with like, movies and TV shows and like the type of things that you see lots of, or just like a concept here, Nordic. Like this is the first thing that actually has to do with aliens and not just like a TV show or a movie. I'm a little bit into UFO stuff recently, so I recognize that one.
You know what? We could probably, that's actually a great kickoff point, because now I can actually go in there and tell the AI agent, hey, most of these are fictional examples. Could you tell me which of these are actually related to ufology and not just fiction? And I can hit command. So I gave it that. And here's
And
the
so the assistant output, that's kind of the more LLM type thing where you're having a conversation with it.
Exactly. So here it comes. So from the following results, Nordic aliens, that's the first one that you pointed out, Anthony. Yeah. That one is not fiction. Ancient aliens is funny enough.
An attempt, yeah, to be real, yeah.
But arguably, it's still ufology. And it picked out from 10 results. We can look at the titles of the results from Alien, Aliens, Alien Franchise, Cowboy and Aliens, Alien Romulus, Ancient Aliens, Xenomorph Aliens. It rejected all of those, and it clued in on the fact that, oh yeah, Ancient Aliens and Nordic Aliens, they look like they have content that's related to ufology.
Yeah, and I would say that's correct. I would say that's definitely true out of all of those.
Isn't that super useful? Like, imagine if you have 100 results and you as a human have to go in and you have to manually select each result. Can you imagine how painful that would be? But yeah, over here, what we can do is we can actually tell the AI, okay, well, pick out the ones that are interesting, which is, in essence, this is a filter. So filter the ones that are interesting. And after that point, you can actually try and tell it, select the ones that are interesting. That's a feature that we can build, and maybe we'll get to that towards the end of the video. But that's a feature that we could actually super easily build using Ragged. So this whole thing is built in Ragged. There's no LangChain, it's just Ragged. And what Ragged is doing is it's defining a few tools, and it's calling the API and the OpenAI API.
So right now you have an API key that is calling a model that is being hosted by OpenAI.
Yes. You say it so well. Yes, exactly. I love the way you explain things. It's super clear. I tend to gloss over things, so thank you.
That's the goal. Yeah, no, because this is the type of thing that when someone sits down to use these kind of things, they're like, okay, how do I spin it up? How do I run? That's usually where my mind goes. And the first thing you're going to need to do is go get an API key. Otherwise, you're going to send that message. It's going to be like, blip, 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 blip. Well, broken.
Exactly. So how this thing is instantiating, let's just go into how this thing is instantiating, how this thing is built. This is a svelte view. First thing we're doing is inside, let's see, where's the on mount? So when the component gets mounted, first thing we're doing is we're just instantiating Ragged. And we're telling it, use the OpenAI provider. And here's the config. The config object is literally the OpenAI config object. So you have all of the OpenAI configs in here. You have
and is this server side because you're using on mount?
Nope, this is all client side.
Okay, isn't that kind of an issue though? If you have your API key in there,
that's a security decision. So if you're using this as, let's say, an internal tool, then that's a decision that is totally fine. You can use this as an internal tool, and you don't really
right now you just have this on localhost. You haven't actually deployed this to the world.
Exactly. And if you look at the structure of the application, you can see that if somebody was really serious about research, then maybe this could be bundled as an Electron app or a desktop app and provided to the user, and the user could provide their own login into OpenAI, and they could access it on their own. So that's one use case. So there's definitely use cases, even though it says dangerously allow browser, it's a totally legit use case. And it's
dangerously allow browser is different from what I'm talking about. Because what I'm talking about is having your API key in the JavaScript client and being able to find it in your dev tools. There's dangerously allow browser. That's the tool use part. That's letting the LLM use the browser, right?
No. It's actually the other way around. This is an OpenAI thing. So OpenAI says, by default, client use of the OpenAI library is not allowed as it risks exposing your secret API credentials to attackers.
Oh, so they build that in themselves. So they're already aware of that.
Exactly.
Okay,
interesting. So one of the things I'm trying to balance is transparency versus ease of use. So if you're going to use Ragged, and you're going to use it on the client side, and you're consciously making the decision that, okay, I'm going to use this inside the browser and I'm going to expose my API key, which is a valid decision in many cases, then just put this in there. I know it says dangerously, but it's there for a reason. It's to scare off people from making the bad choice inadvertently. But if you know what you're doing, then dangerously allow browser is fine.
One of the reasons why I bring that up is my first job was for StepZen, which was a GraphQL API company. And like all the first examples I built, that was like what they kept harping on. They're like, you need to actually make sure people don't expose their API keys, because for them, they're like old school API devs. They're like, never switch your API key. Like, absolutely cannot do that. And so I figured out all these ways to do like server-side functions or serverless functions, like hide that kind of stuff. And things like SvelteKit and most of these frameworks now build in ways to do that. That's pretty dang easy. So there are ways to manage it. That's not too challenging. But like you said, this is even simpler.
Yeah. What's going to happen in the next 4 years is a lot of devices are going to come on the market that have powerful enough GPUs that they can actually run large language models locally. So
That's
I just read an article. Totally, yeah. So Ragged, what I'm hoping for is when that happens, then we can very quickly modify Ragged to have a local provider. So instead of OpenAI, maybe this would say local, and maybe you don't even have the config anymore because you're just using the local machine to do it. There's ways to do this inside the browser already using Hugging Face. I'm not going to go into that, but that's a driver that we could very easily build. So right now we're working
for people who are interested in this, I would just point people to Mistral and the new Llama 3 release. That's there's really exciting things happening in open source LLM work right now.
Totally, yeah. It's so cool right now. You know, the other thing is Cohere, which we're going to be building an integration.
Yeah. Yeah, I built them like a server example with them for Edgeo right before I left. It was like literally the last project I built for them was creating a Cohere kind of integration, and their API is really nice. Their LLM is not quite as good as Claude and ChatGPT, but it's really, really close, I think.
They have a free tier now. So if you're a developer, you don't have to pay to develop stuff as long as you're not pushing to production.
Yeah, their APIs are really nice. I definitely recommend people check that out.
They've been growing on NPM, so yeah, 100%. That's the next integration that we're building. Somebody in the community is already building a Cohere integration. So Cohere is, because it's free, it's easy for developers to get into. Even if you don't have a credit card, you can get function calling from an API. So that's the next integration that somebody's already building. So they're going to be building the driver. So Ragged works on drivers. So right now we only have OpenAI, but Cohere is coming up soon. So, coming back to the code here, how this works is I'm just instantiating Ragged, and after it's instantiated, I have a few actions, like a few tools that I make available. So there's the do search. So this is the Wikipedia search that I showed earlier. Simple function. All it's doing is it takes a text input, and then it does search wiki, which is an API util that I built. Nothing fancy. It just searches Wikipedia. It's like an AJAX call inside it, so kind of boring. Gets the results and then saves them in state. So really simple function. But we need to expose it. We need to expose that function to the LLM. So how do we do that? We are listening for a tool use finish. So what I've done is I've created a tool called Search Wikipedia. And Search Wikipedia is a Ragged tool. So this is all Ragged stuff. And the tool's title is Search Wikipedia. The description is Search Wikipedia for a term. This will return a list of results. It will also display the results to the user. You must only call this function when you're explicitly asked to run a search. So that's the prompt for the tool.
Okay.
And you describe exactly how to use the tool. And after giving that context, you describe what the inputs are. So this is a schema definition. So it's the search term is a string, and here's a simple description. You note that it's required, and that's it. And that's the tool. And the way that you handle the tool, the way that this tool is being handled, is it's event-driven. So Ragged is entirely event-driven. And when the tool use finish event happens, if the name of the tool is search Wikipedia, then we do search. And that's how you hook the LLM into your code.
This is probably slightly outside of my general knowledge, but is this why you need RxJS? Because the event stuff?
Okay. Yeah. We don't need it. I'm using it right now as part of the API. I might take it out because it adds a little bit of bloat. Maybe it's because I'm not doing tree shaking. It's adding like 100 kilobytes or maybe 150 kilobytes right now, which is a lot for a front-end library. If somebody wants to solve that problem, hop on. Come on board and help us solve that problem. That's one of the things that I'll probably solve in the next couple of months is bring down the size of the package. But that's how I was doing do search. And that do search is the function that we saw earlier. So if we wanted to add something like, I don't know, const select article, then that could be, doesn't have to be async. I could give the article ID, which is a number. And then maybe, maybe we can add that selection. We could add the selection into state. And the history object over here, that's what the console history, this is the console history. So maybe I should just read console history. And that console history, we could just append the history so that it shows what the actions of the LLM are. It's mostly really boring JavaScript code, like really, really boring JavaScript code.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as I'm looking at this, this all looks pretty comprehensible to me.
Exactly. Nothing magical here. Everything is simple. And the nice thing about Ragged is that it's all TypeScript code. So you get type hints. And because of the type hints, if you're using like me, I like GitHub Copilot. If you're using type hints, then the type hints will actually help you build the Ragged code already, just out of the box. So yeah, that was a little bit of a demo for Ragged. Work is progressing. Right now, Ragged doesn't even have any history. So like I sort of faked it over here. The assistant output is just one-off commands that I'm sending. If I asked it, hey, what did he just say? It'll just say something like, oh, I don't remember. I didn't say anything. So this is just very, very early code. But the goal here is to continue building these tool use examples out and to provide them like documentation and tool use examples and turn this into a thing that normal web developers with no experience whatsoever with LLMs can very easily use. And that's the goal, like super low learning curve.
Yeah, what I would like to do next is, could you go to your example where you just run like a node script that like throws text at an LLM and gets a result back? Because for me, I found that really helped me compare it to things like LangChain, where LangChain has this like abstraction called chains, and it adds kind of a lot of overhead in terms of like the understanding. Whereas what I liked about the example you first showed me is it was like a single function that you give text to, and then you get a response back from the LLM. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. So let's take a look. So this is a very simple piece of code that adds a couple of numbers together. Very simple. And there's nothing interactive. It's literally like, this is the prompt over here, add 66 and 66, and it should give you the right answer. So let's work with that example. Examples. The project is so new that I haven't even changed my working title for the folder. I called it language games before I called it Ragged. And I haven't even changed that.
I like that.
Yeah. Wittgenstein, I think, was the one who was it Wittgenstein? I forget the guy who actually talks about language games.
Yeah, anyway. that's Wittgenstein. Yeah, I had a conversation with the CEO of Trichroma about Wittgenstein and how like he was 100 years ahead of the game with all this stuff.
Oh yeah. This breaking apart language and realizing it's just noise. It was brilliant. Here's how this example will go. I'll run pnpm dev. It should tell us what the prompt is, and then it should tell us what the answer is. And the answer will come from the adder tool that we've defined already. And I'll demo the functionality, and then we can walk into the code. Prompt, add 66 and 66. Answer 132.
Yeah, and
Pretty
as you see there,
snappy.
it's basically just doing tsx main.mts. So you're just running this function right here, and then it's giving you this output. And then I was going to say about the last example, it was not entirely clear where the prompts were. So I like this, where it specifically says this is the prompt, because calling it a description is like not always entirely clear from like the LLM terminology, like where you're actually feeding it a prompt and where you're just giving text to, you know, explain something for yourself, you know?
Great point. Yeah, I'm learning from you too, Anthony, because like explaining things, I think it's just the curse of being in the trenches is you sort of are so close to the problem that it's hard for you to translate what's in your head, like with all of the details, into something that is actually useful for other people. So thanks for slowing me down there.
Yeah, okay.
Here's so we saw just now that add 66 and 66 is the prompt that comes from here, and then the answer somehow magically appeared, right? Answer was 132. So where did that answer come from? Well, if we look at up here inside the tool, there's two ways to use these tools. One is you can listen to the event. Two is you can provide a handler to the tool. And the handler, that just makes it really easy to like return like it's almost like a mapper to return the results. You could either console.log inside the handler. So I could very well just console.log the result over here. And that's one way to just log it. And that's totally legit. Another way to log it would be to actually listen. And let's see if I'm actually listening over here, because I don't remember anymore. Adder, tool use, results.
Result.find, r.type, tool use result.
Right. So, right. So the result over here, I'm not using function calling. I'm not using event streaming. I'm just using a promise interface to simplify the example. So how I'm actually doing the console.log is all of the actions and all of the history comes back inside the result, and I'm just looking for the exact event called tool use result, and I'm logging that. And it's all promise based, so I'm just awaiting predict.
Yeah, it's the predict function. That's when I was doing this with you. That's your kind of API abstraction term for that's where you're giving it the prompt itself.
Exactly.
Ragged makes it so easy to integrate tools. I tried building an adder using GPT OpenAI API. The response object is so complex, but Ragged abstracts all that. There you go. There's your one-liner pitch.
There we go. Abhimanyu is awesome at explaining stuff too. Like that's exactly it. If you look under the hood and you look at the actual query that's going up, it's labyrinthine is the word that comes to mind. It's like a really complex nested object.
Yeah.
The nice thing about Ragged is here's the prompt. Like, look at this. Result equals ragged.predict. Here's the prompt. Add 66 and 66. Mm-hmm. We're going to use the GPT-4 model, which is smarter. And GPT-4 is better for tool use. And we're telling it, you have a calculator here called adder, and you can use adder. What is adder? Well, let's take a look. Adder. Here's adder. Adder is a tool. It's called adder. That's how the LLM sees it, with that string. So if I change that, then that would change the name of what the LLM calls. The description is it adds two numbers together. What are those numbers? A and B. A is the first number.
This is not a built-in OpenAI tool. This is a tool you are kind of creating and defining and then handing to the LLM and describing.
Yes, sir. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then you take that and you drop it inside the prompt. So if I remove this, then that would be, if I just give it an empty object, then the LLM would try and do it using its own brain. And it might give you the right answer. But, the tool use is really where Ragged shines. This guy, if I wanted to create a multiplier, so what if I wanted to create a multiplier, right? So multiplier equals T. T comes from Ragged. That's being imported at the very top. So you import T from Ragged.
T for tool.
T for tool.
Yeah.
Now you start off with tool, and then it has a few other things which I'll get into when we get to the inputs. But let's start with tool dot title. multiplier, and GPT Copilot, GitHub Copilot is just going to do most of the hard work for me. Description, multiply two numbers together, and then the inputs. This is where T shows off a little bit more of its power. T will give you different types of inputs. So right now we're supporting Boolean, enum, number, and string. Okay. And the short-term goal is to add object and array. So you can pass in nested objects, and you can pass in arrays. And you can even pass in arrays of nested objects. So that becomes more powerful.
That's where you can start getting into, like, if you wanted to build in RAG into this, you could do like an array of just like, text files or something, and then have that be an input that it can, answer questions off of.
Yes. Now here's the thing. The input, this is where traditional web dev changes and it becomes, more AI and ML driven. In traditional web dev, the input is only provided by the user or by the developer. Mm-hmm. But with machine learning and AI and large language models, the input can also be provided by the agent. Mm-hmm. So the input over here is actually the agent input. This is the input that the AI will put in. Maybe I should rename this. Maybe this should be called like AI inputs, just to clarify. But this is stuff that the AI will put in. And the AI will enter t.number.description first number. So what you were saying was right, but instead of the actual documents, this would actually be the operations on the documents. So you would provide the documents in context, and then the AI. This would be
more like the embedding layer, right?
It would be more like exactly. So if you wanted to generate embeddings, then maybe you could ask the AI to like generate an embedding over here. Maybe an example would be, let's say you had documents, just fictional example, on select document equals t.tool, and then you would have title, select document, description, select document from a list, select it by ID. Each ID is unique. And then you would have inputs, and you wouldn't have documents. You would have document ID. And how you could do that, how you could call this is you would do r.predict. Here are the documents, and then you pass in the documents inside an array, and then you would prompt it. So we haven't built that out yet, but you can add.
That's super cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you could do like, tool select document, and you could say, here are the documents, select the ones that have to do with ufology. So you can have like 100 documents, and then the AI will go in and just select the ones that are related to ufology and give you the exact IDs. And then you can do with those what you will. You could delete them, you can modify them, you could show that you've selected them, you could move them around, whatever you want. But you can see how instead of going in and asking the user to select, who might be a very busy admin person, to select all of the documents that are relevant, now the admin person can just go in and say, all right, my boss asked for just the ones that have to do with real ufology. I'm just going to select the document. I'm going to ask the AI to do the hard work for me and select all of the ufology documents. It'll give me that, and then I can generate a report and send it to my boss. Mm-hmm. So instead of spending an hour or like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however long, now the AI is doing all the boring work, and that empowers the user to do more with their time.
Totally. Yeah, I've been using LLMs so much just for my own like content workflow. Like right now I have a whole setup where I run Whisper to transcribe like this video is telling me to do this after we're done. I run it through Whisper, transcribe it. I take that transcript and I feed it to an LLM with a prompt that says create a 1-sentence description, a 1-paragraph description, and then chapter headings with timestamps. So it'll give me like a meta description if I want to just turn it into like a quick markdown thing. I even have it generate the markdown if it's a YouTube video, because it can read the YouTube metadata and then turn that straight into a markdown file. So it's almost like a website generator in some sense from YouTube videos. So that's one of the things that I've been doing, and I've found like to be super, super useful. And I'll probably build out more integrations with other LLMs, because right now the way I have it set up, it literally just spits out a prompt with the transcripts, like just concatenate into one document, and I copy paste it and give it right to the input of. I use Claude now because Claude has a longer context window, so it's better for like 2-hour long things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just copy paste it back in. So I don't have it set up with an API call at all. But this seems like the type of thing that eventually this, maybe even right now, it could do something like that.
Yeah, I think the multimedia stuff is sort of coming as soon as we have there's problems with the API over here. Like it's like even inputs over here, it's not clear that it would be the AI inputs. Like it's not clear that it would be the AI putting in inputs. I'm not really super happy with the overall API yet. It's a very, very early on project. So once the API is settled and we know what the API is going to look like, on my roadmap, which is like the roadmap sort of extends into a bunch of features, we need to start adding multimedia stuff to this, because multimedia stuff is where a lot of hard work goes into working with videos right now. A lot of people transcribe them manually.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people subtitle them manually. So ideally, what this thing can do is you can just visit, like imagine a Chrome extension where you can just go to YouTube and Ragged is listening in on the YouTube video or somehow feeding into the YouTube stream, and it's generating the markdown document for you, the one that you described. So building Chrome extensions is a feature that Ragged is probably going to excel at. And the problem really is that all of these AI LLM things, they haven't been built for developers. They've all been,
this is my blog post where I explain the whole workflow I have that does that. And you might be able to take some inspiration from that once you start doing more multimedia stuff. The way I have it is you literally just clone Whisper and do it all on your computer. Like there's no API calls at all. But definitely.
Can we read that? Like, do you wanna show it off a bit? Because I'd love to learn more.
Yeah. Let me share my screen. And I can show what's going on here. So I'm using this tool called YTDLP, which is like this really, really powerful CLI that interfaces with YouTube and has like FFmpeg built in under the hood. And what I do is you basically start with just like a YouTube video. So this is, I think, this is the first episode of FS Jam. And it runs through it and creates a WAV file. And I'll go through this kind of quickly just so people can get a sense of what it is. And then it runs Whisper, which is OpenAI's open source transcription. It's like the last open source thing they ever created, because now everything they do is closed source, which is kind of frustrating. And then it creates a transcript, which kind of looks something like this. I run just a node script to kind of clean up the transcript a little bit. That's not really too exciting. And then I have this big prompt that I add to it. And this was actually just for the sake of the blog post, I wanted to really show what you could do. It does some other things that I don't really use for my own workflow, but can be interesting. It will create 5 potential titles. It'll write a 1-sentence summary, a 1-paragraph summary, and a 2-paragraph summary. And then it will create chapter headings, and then 3 key takeaways, and then 3 potential future topics if you want to like expand upon it. And then you feed it an example of what you want it to look like, and then then once it's all
that's
created,
incredible.
And then this is now the bash script that kind of does it all at the same time, while also using YTDLP to grab things like the video URL, the upload date, the uploader is the channel, the YouTube channel, the YouTube channel URL, and then the title, upload date, and thumbnail. And then I'm just like echoing out to a markdown file. This is a little hacky, but it works.
For sure.
Then you run YTDLP, you run Whisper, do the transformation, and then I added a step where you could give it a playlist, and it can do this on multiple videos. So then it has this like loop step where it like loops over a playlist and does it on every single video. So yeah, it's pretty built out. And like here's an example of then what it ends up giving you. You have this markdown header, and then you have the potential titles, summaries,
Dude,
chapters, everything.
this is
So
like
pretty cool, right?
this is like a fundable product right here. Like if you take this to a VC and you show it to a VC, you might be able to raise money. That's incredible.
Honestly, you're like the third person who's told me that. The first time I showed this to Jen, my wife, she's like, "Why aren't you charging for this?"
You really should, man. Honestly, like if I were you, I would just take that and go to a VC and say, "Hey, look, I built this prototype. Give me some money, and then you can hire me."
Cool. Well, I'm glad it's impressive. I've done a bunch of streams actually recently, kind of showing this to other content creators. I showed this to Ben Holmes, and I showed it to Nick Taylor, Nikki T, and trying to kind of figure out like who else would want to use this, like what would they want to be different about it. So like this is my open source, AI thing that I'm working on. Like you have yours, and this is what I'm hacking. This is what I've been hacking on for like months and months and months.
Nice, dude. That's incredible. It's insane, right? Like stuff that previously was completely impossible to do now is just trivial.
Yeah,
Not that like you've built it out and out and out, so your stuff is super impressive. But I'm pretty sure if somebody wanted to build like a little prototype that just got like a summary, I'm pretty sure they could build it out in like half a day, 2 days, a week.
Yeah, you need to just run the whisper transcription and then concatenate a single sentence prompt saying create a summary of this transcript. That's it. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. That's super inspiring, man. Like that blog article is like, I want to read it now. I think you probably have it in the YouTube, like in the YouTube video somewhere. But I want to like take a look at that because I built something similar-ish, but not really. I built something similar. I built an automatic essay grader. And I built that, and it was showing some really promising results. The professor or the teacher has to just provide the assignment and the rubric for the assignment to the AI. And then when the student submits the essay, the AI automatically grades that. And the first question I got from someone was, well, what about presentations? Can it do presentations? And looking at what you just showed me, it looks like audio presentations could be pretty easy for this thing to do.
I gotta ask, have you seen the South Park ChatGPT episode?
Yeah.
That was my favorite part about it, is that when the teacher finds out that all the kids are using ChatGPT to write essays, his response was, "You mean I can use AI to grade these essays?"
I forgot about that. Let the AI write the essays, let the AI grade the essays, and then let the AI train itself on that and eventually take over the world.
Dude, that episode was so funny. Oh my god.
I like the shaman. The shaman who can detect ChatGPT.
Yeah, and I kind of like, we're kind of like the shaman. Like, I'm sure there's been time, like I'm sure there was a recent video I did where I got like 4 comments on it that were all like a whole paragraph, just like super positive, saying how great the video was. And I'm like, all 4 of these LLMs. These aren't real people.
You could tell, eh?
Yeah. It was really, cause it was like so obvious, and like they all read like LinkedIn messages, and it's just like knowing the type of people who follow like crypto projects, like no one's gonna leave like a whole paragraph long, very written out thing of like how great this thing is. That is like all each sentence is the same amount of words. It's like there's a uniformity to the text that comes out, especially with ChatGPT. Claude actually sounds more human, and really, and you listen to my blog post that I wrote about this, how having a conversation with Claude almost feels like talking to a real person in a really uncanny way.
It's very eloquent, and it's super empathetic. It understands, like it doesn't feel like a bot, and the fiction writing is just incredible with Claude.
Yeah, where ChatGPT, you feel like you're talking to like Hal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. This stuff is what, less than 3 years old? Like ChatGPT came out what, like last year? Was it
ChatGPT is not even 2 years old. It came out the last day of November, 2022.
2022. Wow, a year and a half. Yeah. It's stuff that I think every developer should be hopping on and learning this stuff, and especially because like there was no machine learning or data science in the stuff that we just talked about. It was all just JavaScript.
All JavaScript code.
Yeah, and plain English. And hey, you could prompt it in Chinese. You could prompt it in Hindi, you can prompt it in Russian, you can prompt it in and several different languages. So it's already internationalized, which is the crazy
Yeah.
part. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome, man. So we're at the hour right now. Are there
yeah.
other things you want to talk about or show off, or do you want to start wrapping it up? I got as much time as you need, so it's kind of up to you.
Yeah, let's wrap it up, man. I think this was nice, and I got all my points across. So we're all looking for contributors and people to hop on. I've been mentoring developers for ages and ages and ages now. So what if somebody wants to hop on and somebody wants to just work on this? I'm happy to get hands on and work with them like side by side and show them the ropes of how to build a library and whatever they need. Like if they want to learn how to work with LLMs, I can show them. I can teach that in return for contributions. If they want to learn how to work with TypeScript, build their own library, show off their skills, I can work with them. Don't ask me to write documentation because I suck at it, but I can.
Yeah,
I
and I
can guide.
really encourage people listening right now to take Monarch up on this offer, because one of the biggest questions when people are getting into coding and they're told they need to get into open source, they're like, how do I get into open source? And my buddy Brian Douglas, B Dougie, he has a whole company built around this open sourced, and we've had a lot of conversations about this. And one of the themes we always hit on is, don't go to React and try to contribute to React. That you're not going to be able to. It's just like,
No.
it's being run by a giant company. It has 10 years of legacy. It's being used by so many people that you want to find something small and at the ground floor with a maintainer who is available and willing to help you out and get your feet wet with it. So like, if you want to get into open source, this is the type of project you should be looking at. Like, I would really, really stress that.
Totally, totally. The smaller it is, that's what I liked about Redwood too. Like, especially
Yeah.
when it started off, like everybody. I don't know about now. I should really hit them up and just go and say
It's about
hi.
the same size it ever was.
Oh yeah,
It's got a team of people. It's got, some companies building it. It never went full Next.js. So that was like kind of disappointing for me, because I thought it was so awesome and I wanted it to like blow up.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like,
You're still wearing
yeah, I
the
got
shirt.
the shirt. Yeah. But it's solid tech now, and they're, going to React Server components. And so like, it's
Nice.
still, there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening there. And it still has that kind of like small team feel to where you can get involved, you can meet the people, you can meet Tom, and you can like, oh, you get to meet the founder of GitHub, no big deal.
No big deal. Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, Tom's
It's
super, super nice. Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Awesome,
All right.
man. Well, this is super fun. We will ship this. I will run it through my automatic show note generators, create some nice chapters and timestamps for people as well, for anyone who's going to be catching this afterwards. And yeah, check out Ragged. It's a super cool project. I've already created a quick start, and I have my own repo out there, ajcwebdev-ragged on GitHub. People want to check out. So I'll probably end up having a blog post as well, because I think this is cool. I really like getting involved in open source projects at the ground floor as well. Is something that I've really gotten a lot out of, both personally and professionally. And it seems like we've had a lot of people in the chat who are really excited about this as well. So that's really cool.
Anthony, thank you for having me on and having the Ragged community on your stream. And yeah, thank you very much.
All right, we'll catch you guys next time.